How's it going, Summoners? I am so happy to see you guys once again. My name is Tia and I'll be your host for our patch 11.9 rundown. Just like we've done for every patch, I'll run you through all the changes and also provide tier lists for all 5 roles. These are curated by our in-house high elo analysts, so make sure to check your section out. With that said, hit the sub button and let's get started with the changes. Before we delve into balance changes, let's start with the new skins this patch. Worlds 2020 happened and we saw Damwon win it all. Thus, we have skins to celebrate their victory this patch. Damwon Gaming Jin, Kennen, Leona, Nidalee, and Twisted Fate are now available, so check those out. In addition, Conqueror Jax and the Prestige edition of the skin are here as well. This patch is the one MSI will be played on, so for those of you who enjoy watching pro play, you should consider it an important one. Let's talk about balances now. Alright everyone, raise your hand if you are tired of getting run over by full tank Hecarim. You don't actually have to, because I already know who you are, because we are currently all raising our hands. The blood is rushing to my shoulders, it hurts. Okay, this patch the item has received a flat nerf to its bonus movement speed from 60% to 40%. It previously received an adjustment, but the item has remained a problem, and as a result, it's gotten a true nerf. Champions gain far too much mobility. It's gotten to the point that champions who are immobile can build this and overcome their built-in weaknesses far too effectively. Dead Man's Plate has also been nerfed, but instead of hitting the movement speed, its health was reduced from 400 to 300. Essentially, the choice between damage reduction and mobility is more clearly defined with this change. Those are the nerfs this patch, so let's talk about item buffs next. The first buff is for Moonstone Renewer. This mythic item was nerfed quite recently and unfortunately ended up being a little bit too weak. In order to compensate, Starlit Grace's healing effect was increased from 60 to 70. Death's Dance has also received some minor buffs. The attack damage has gone up from 50 to 55 and the armor from 40 to 45. Although minor, a buff is a buff, and players who have strayed away from the item now have more reason to give it another shot. I don't think this will significantly increase the popularity of the item or anything, but the players who do frequently purchase it are definitely happy. Wit's End was also buffed. In this case though, the buff is pretty big. First, the dagger in the recipe has been changed to a longsword. Early damage is usually better than attack speed, so essentially the recipe is stronger than before. Also, the bonus attack damage on the completed item went up from 30 to 40. Let me take a quick second to mention our question of the day. Which champion do you like having most on your team in the late game? Being that I'm a support main and everyone thinks Sona is dead because of Seraphine, I like playing Sona. Go ahead, judge me. Her scaling is pretty OP, and when she gets her items, you can really keep your carries alive with her healing and shielding. But enough about me, I want to know what you guys have to say, so let me know your answers in the comments down below. Alright, let's get back to the video. Finally, we have a small buff for tank junglers because Sunfire Aegis now deals 150% instead of 100% damage to monsters. Moving forward, we'll talk about champion changes beginning with the top lane. First, Dr. Mundo has been nerfed after becoming too strong of a top laner. Both his AD and armor growths have been reduced from 3.5 per level to 3. These aren't the biggest nerfs, but he'll see a small drop in his win rates. He'll remain in the A tier even after this change. Rumble is next for nerfs, as last patch's changes unfortunately made him a stronger mid laner once again. His passive's damage has gone down from 10 to 50 on hit to 5 to 40. This means that the percentage health damage will play a bigger part during overheated scraps. Mid laners typically have less health, and thus this nerf will hurt him there more than it does up top. For now, we'll keep him in the A tier. Garen has been a top tier pick all season and he's gotten a nerf this patch. His W now provides a little less armor and MR per stack. The value has gone down from 0.25 to 0.2 for each unit killed. The stat cap has been increased from 120 to 150 though, so you'll max out at the same point still. Garen remains in the OP tier in spite of this change. Next, Shen's ultimate got a huge buff. The shield's base health was reduced from 175 to 525 to 120 to 500. However, it now includes an extra ratio of 17.5% of your bonus HP. There's now a feasible way to make your ultimate stronger. Following the meta builds will allow you to shield your allies heavily in the mid to late game, and now you won't have to build a ton of AP to do so. Set has also been buffed this patch. This buff targets builds heavily emphasizing damage. Set's W damage has been increased from 25 plus 10 per 180% of grit expended to 25 plus 20 per 180. His ultimate's bonus AD ratio has been increased from 100% to 120%. Set's bonus AD scaling has gone up significantly this patch, and we think he's now on the border of the S and A tier. We'll make sure to keep an eye on him as the patch plays out. For other changes we've made, first we've placed Gwen into the B tier. Although she was off to a rough start, Gwen has gradually made a comeback. She has a unique kit with tons of potential, but it comes at a cost. It'll definitely take some time before players start taking full advantage of her strengths. Part of what makes her difficult to play is how squishy she is. Playing a carry will always come with risks, especially if you're a melee one. We've also dropped Wukong into the S tier and also moved Yorick, Yone, and Heimerdinger down a tier. Unfortunately, Yorick's dominance seems to be a trend only in low elo, meaning that it's difficult to consider him a top tier pick in general. Yone's much stronger in the mid lane and can't find the same results as a top laner, while Heimerdinger did receive a nerf that we'll talk about in our mid lane section. Our OP picks are Garen and Darius, followed by Camille, Maokai, Poppy, Cho'Gath, Riven, Mordekaiser, Fiora, Urgot, Nocturne, Jax, Gnar, Sylas, Vladimir, Malphite, and Wukong in the S tier. Next up, we'll talk about the jungle. The first change we'll talk about is to Hecarim. His base armor was reduced from 36 to 32, but his armor growth went up from 4 to 4.25. His Q's bonus damage per stack has been reduced from 5% to 2%, plus 1% per 33 bonus AD. Also, his W's healing will include a bonus 1% healing for every 40 bonus AD for damage he deals. In return, damage his allies deal now only heal him for 15% plus 1% per 80 bonus AD. The last change is that his E's minimum bonus damage has gone down from 35 to 155 to 30 to 110, and the maximum bonus damage from 70 to 310 to 60 to 220. So many changes! Essentially, Hecarim needs to build damage to be as effective as before, and even then, the maximum damage on his E has gone down significantly. Considering all these nerfs, we've moved Hecarim down from the OP tier to the A tier. The king has fallen! I hope. Okay, moving on. I bet no one expected Morgana to become an OP tier jungler. We updated her placement during the middle of last patch, but that might change soon. Her W's bonus damage to monsters has been reduced from 200% to 185%. However, we think she'll still be a top tier pick, and we'll leave her in the OP tier. We want to see how big this nerf actually affects her, but at worst, she remains an S tier pick. We'll make sure to update you guys in our mid-patch update. By the way, guys, if you're trying to improve at League, you should definitely check out ProGuides.com. We have tons of courses as well as coaches that can help you out, and if you subscribe on our website, you can also gain access to resources for other games as well. Diana also gained a little too much power with her buffs. Her armor pen level has gone down from 3.6 to 3.1, base HP regen down from 7.5 to 6.5, and bonus attack speed on passive down from 20 to 40% to 15 to 40%. In spite of these nerfs, we'll leave her in the S tier. Gragas was also nerfed this patch. His E's damage was reduced from 80 to 240 to 80 to 220. Gragas remains a B tier pick, but once again, his power as a pick that flexes into several roles has been reduced. Next is Kindred, who received a buff. Their cooldown was reduced from 9 to 8 seconds and the damage up from 60 to 140 to 60 to 160. A combination of more damage and a lower cooldown makes for a very, very nice buff. However, we're gonna leave Kindred in the A tier for now. Trundle also got buffed this patch. His E's slow has gone up from 20 to 60% to 32 to 60%. Since players will usually only level this ability once early on and save it for last to max, this buff is pretty significant at almost all points of the game. Even though this buff will probably push him past a 50% win rate, we'll leave him in the B tier as he'll likely remain a niche pick. Kayn was also buffed, or maybe it's more correct to say that Ras did. Red form Kayn's Q damage now deals 65% of total AD instead of 55%. This is a flat damage buff, and with it, we've moved him back up to the S tier. There are quite a few other changes we've had to make. A big part of this is the shifting meta, especially with the nerf to Chem Tank this patch. Lee Sin has been moved up to the S tier as a lot of top tier picks are weaker now. He's been close to S tier, already breaking in at high elo, but this patch he's bound to see more widespread popularity. Joining Hecarim in the A tier are Rammus and Udyr, who are going to come out weaker as a result of the Chem Tank nerfs. We've also readjusted our lower tiers, pushing Olaf, Jax, and Shyvana down to the C tier, with Urgot and Zed going down to the D tier. Our OP jungle picks are Elise and Morgana, followed by Kha'Zix, Graves, Evelynn, Nunu, Ivern, Fiddlesticks, Viego, Diana, Shaco, and Lee Sin in the S tier. While we debated moving Graves down to the A tier, the nerfs to Chem Tank should help him out quite a bit, as he'll have a little bit less to worry about moving forward. Next up is the mid lane. Last patch, Vladimir got a big buff to his Q's cooldown. It was reduced by a whole second at max rank, and this patch it's gotten a nerf to find a halfway point. The Q cooldown has been changed from 9 to 4 seconds to 9 to 4.6 seconds. The previous buff increased his win rate by a whole %, and with this nerf, we think he'll drop down into the S tier. Like we spoke about earlier, Heimerdinger got a nerf as well. His W's damage has been reduced from 50 to 170 to 50 to 150. As a result, the max damage has gone down from 90 to 306 to 90 to 270. This takes a big hit on Heimerdinger's poke and his overall damage output beginning in the mid-game. We've moved him down to the B tier as a result. A champion that got a buff is Zerath. Assassin meta is rough and he's getting some love finally. His Q's damage has gone up from 80 to 240 plus 75% AP to 70 to 230 plus 90% AP. His W's damage was also increased from 60 to 180 plus 60% AP to 60 to 200 plus 65% AP. Overall, these are pretty big buffs, especially since AP ratios have been increased as well. As a result, we've moved Zerath into the A tier since this newfound scaling will punish opponents who can't win lane against him. Our OP mid lane picks are Zed, Katarina, and Yasuo, followed by Pantheon, Victor, Talon, Annie, Galio, Fizz, Echo, Kiana, Viego, Diana, Ahri, Yone, LeBlanc, Kassadin, Sylas, Anivia, and Vladimir in the S tier. First for a nerf is Jinx. She's been top tier for multiple patches, and a nerf was due soon. The surprising part is it's not a traditional nerf, but instead a bug fix nerf. Her rocket crit damage has gone down from 200% to 175% when splashing onto targets. Taking away unintended power is a good change, but for now, we believe she'll remain in the OP tier. Next, Kog'Maw received some well-needed buffs this patch. His Q's resistance shred has gone up from 20 to 28% to 25 to 33%. Also, his E's mana cost went down from 80 to 120 to 60 to 100. Considering that he also received a buff several patches ago, Kog'Maw is gradually rising in strength. His win rate is solid, just short of 51% in high elo, but at the moment, we'll leave him in the B tier because of his low play rate. Should it increase, we'll make sure to reassess and adjust his placement. A quick reminder for those of you who missed our mid-patch update, we've added Tahm Kench to the A tier because of the return of the Senna Tahm Kench duo lane. Once again, she's carrying Tahm Kench to relevance. Our OP tier consists of Jinx and Samira, followed by Tristana, Kai'Sa, Ezreal, Ashe, Vayne, Jhin, Seraphine, Swain, and Sivir in the S tier. Finally, let's wrap it up with my favorite role, supports. First, we have a pretty noticeable buff for Taric. The mana cost of his Q has gone down from 70 to 110 to 70 to 90. A mana cost change alone might not seem significant, but considering that it's for his Q, that changes everything. Players cast this ability an incredible amount, especially during team fights. This change should ensure that players don't run out of mana at the worst possible moment. He'll remain in the B tier for now. Now we have a buff for my baby Lulu. Her W cooldown has been reduced from 16 to 12 to 15 to 11, and the attack speed bonus increased from 20 to 35% to 25 to 35%. While the attack speed buff isn't a big deal, the reduced cooldown is. Lulu is already a top tier pick, and now that she's been buffed, we're okay moving her to the OP tier. The only other change we have for supports is that we've moved Seraphine down to the B tier after reevaluating her placement. Our OP support picks are Leona, Thresh, Senna, and Lulu, followed by Bard, Morgana, Nautilus, Blitzcrank, and Maokai in the S tier. That'll conclude our 11.9 patch rundown. Let me know what you thought in the comments down below, because I really do read them and I enjoy reading them because I like you guys. We also have a link to join our Discord in the description link below, so make sure to check it out and join our community. Yay, friends! Until next time, I hope you guys continue to stay safe and play in the sun if it's sunny. Yay, sun!